social challenge that affects my most favorite person in the world, which is me. I hope that by the end of my talk, we'll be able to explore a few things and we'll be able to get to the root of armed conflict in Africa and find a solution to that. So if you are a Pan-Africanist or a huge subscriber to Africa Rising Stories, some of the things I'm going to say here may not go down well with you. So I'm issuing a disclaimer. I'm not here to preach doom for Africa. I just need to state a problem that we have to solve so that we can enjoy the next chapter of our development in peace. I did a Google search of Nankpandu in my hometown a few weeks back, and the first thing that popped up on the search result was conflict. And this is because every year in Africa, a lot of lives are lost, not due to ignorance, hunger, or disease, although these are causes. Where I come from, it's because of conflict. We have simply refused to revolve. Wikipedia still has a list of ongoing armed conflicts that features Africa. I would like to see that change. The Rwandan Genocide and the Liberian War started from intertribal conflict. And despite efforts being made to stop Boko Haram, they seem to be on a course to break the records of the deaths that were recorded during the Congo War, which as it stands, has been the deadliest in Africa. Today, there are ethnic conflicts in the Upper East, Upper West, Northern, and Volta regions of Ghana. And during these ethnic clashes, a lot of lives are lost, and we just assume there are little disagreements that will die off with conflict resolution programs. This has been ongoing since 1985. And almost every time there's an ethnic clash, there are lots of lives. You don't have to take my word for it. You could just check it up. So, you could just check it up. And so, in Ghana, anytime I always talked about conflicts, especially when I was an exchange student in the US, I always made mention that Ghana is a continental beacon of peace, when in reality, a lot of lives are lost during these clashes. And most of these deaths go unrecorded because we assume that they're just little disagreements that will die off with conflict resolution programs. And so, most of these deaths go unrecorded because it is also believed that the group with the most dead has lost the fight, so the elders are reluctant to state the right figures to the media or even amongst the people. I began to develop my own definition of conflict at 14. I was in junior high school and a few weeks away from taking my basic education examination when I realized that my school could close down because some people simply wanted to fight. I remember walking back home convicted that conflict was a barrier to the achievement of my dreams and aspirations. That definition hasn't changed for me ever since. Growing up, my parents recounted that in 1994, there was an ongoing conflict between the Dagomba and the Konkomba people. Coincidentally, within that period, my father became very sick and was being taken to Accra to see a specialist. On their way, they were stopped by Dagomba troops, who mistaken my family for Konkombas. This is because there's a slight similarity in the Konkomba and the Bimoba language, and we are Bimobas. My mom tells me that my elder sister, Victoria, who was barely 6 at that time, and in tears, pleaded with the armed men saying, "My father is sick, and he is not a Konkomba." The pleas of my sister got to the armed men, who checked my father's medical history and let them go. That was close, and the death of my father could have shattered my family's dreams of a better tomorrow. I would certainly not have been born 2 years after that incident, and my sister would probably not have become the French teacher she is today, contributing to the development of this country. In the past few years, a number of students who could have contributed to the achievement of the Ghana 2020 vision died through conflict in my community. One of the deaths that saddens me most was one of a junior high school student who was beaten to death by a mob of angry fighters because he was mistaken to be a thief. And here is the catch of his story. Even if he wasn't a thief, his death was still a victory for the fighters anyway because he was on the other line of the tribal spectrum. This is 2015, and not very much has changed. I couldn't even break into the new year in church on the 31st of December 2014 because of curfew back home. And that was supposed to be normal for me because an 18-year-old African cannot rebuke an adult, and conflict is certainly older than me. If you are in the audience today and you've never experienced conflict, I'm going to tell you why it affects you. Well, first of all, the image of Africa, your beloved continent, is being tarnished on the web by images of conflict. That is enough to shy away potential investors who could have boosted your business. Secondly, there's a huge possibility that if you are ever within conflict-prone areas at a point, you may be a victim of the collateral damage of conflict. A good example is what happened to Ghanaian fans at AFCON 2015. Although they were not violent, they got hurt because a few people in Equatorial Guinea decided to fight. And finally, your everyday KFC eating person who might be engaged in one harmless ethnic rivalry or another has the potential of expanding into something as big as ISIS or Boko Haram. So moving on into the next chapter of Ghana and Africa, how do we reverse the trend? By getting our young people to start a revolution of change that can ensure that, one, we curb conflicts, and that, two, with the right investments and continued progress, we turn our young persons, 25 and below, from about 57% of our population, into a group capable of driving economic gains. Let me start by telling you what the solution is not. I wrote an essay in 2013 that won me a trip to Washington, D.C. My essay depicted the character of a Ghanaian student who wished he was a plant in America. A plant in America because it was a place where people were compassionate. It was a place where people were united by the ideals of the American dream and ever ready to change the status quo. My essay was based on a true life character, a senior of mine back in high school. My senior was from the Upper East region of Ghana, and to be precise, Boku. He understood what it meant to have to sleep in the bush because your house could be burnt at night. He knew what it felt like to lose loved ones to outdated guns and inexperienced assassins fighting over land, chieftaincy, and women. Well, he had seen relief from NADMO disappear. He had seen relief from NADMO disappear as fast as it appeared. On the flip side, he had seen missionaries who fed their dogs twice in a day and bathed them at least once in a week, and figured it would be a blessing to live his life as a plant with these white folks. And he is not alone. I wasn't surprised when Rosemary, my hairdresser from the Volta region, told me of how Lisa, to the US or the UK, could turn around the fortunes of her family. The story is slightly different for Inusa, my cousin. He didn't think he needed to leave the continent to be successful. All he wanted to do was to go to Nigeria and join the military. So he left in 2013 after his WASI exams. He got there, he started a process he didn't complete, and he came back in December last year. When we met, he told me that, well, a lot of people had died as a result of Boko Haram, and that the average number of widows at the barracks in Nigeria had considerably risen. I realized he was just too proud to tell me that he ran away from Nigeria because of Boko Haram. So I decided to provoke him by saying what can come, to literally mean he should have stayed and fought. He told me that, the conflict in Ghana was different and he'd prefer fighting here, but that was just a half story. And for many people like Inusa, they would rather run. When it comes to their lives, what can come doesn't apply. So, the solution is not in running away or defensive violence. The solution is not in running away or defensive violence. The real barrier to peace is not the conflict, but what we think of it. That is why Bob Marley calls for us in Redemption Song to emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. That is why the 13th Amendment was only made possible after civil rights activists like Dr. King decided it was worth dying for. And so, Gandhi did so much in bringing about a revolution in human rights through guided civil disobedience of wrong traditions than he could have ever done through violence. And that is the reason why I'm not prescribing the mass protests by the Ivorian people that helped them get rid of one tyrant. We have had enough concentrated peace talks. How do you talk a person out of conflict when they've not yet understood that peace is a better option? And as Ori Okolo put it, for most Africans today, where you are born, the circumstances under which you are born, and where you live determine the rest of your lives. I would like to see that change. I want a restructuring of the mind. That will not just help us get rid of one tyrant, but that will help us reshape every other government in generations to come into an effective collage bent on national development. Our leaders need to stop chasing temporal solutions and face the social challenge head on by revolving from the roots, by mentoring our youth one-on-one. I know this will work because I'm a product of indirect mentorship that has worked. There are places I've been, teachers I've met, opportunities that were presented to me, made me believe I could achieve all I wanted if I pushed for it. And so, if Malala won a Nobel Peace Prize for being shot while she was defending her right to education, I guess I'm a suitable candidate too. I had my own set of challenges in a community where the social system seemed more or less broken, where education was not just a way out, but more or less a national mirage. I've come to join other activists like Malala with the common goal of revolving on societal norms through the strategic activity my success attributed to, which is mentorship. The Mindshift Foundation is a non-profit through which I would like to change and empower the minds of young people in conflict-prone areas through a Community Enabled Mentorship program. The long-term goal is to help these young people shun conflict and embrace productivity. And in the next 20 years, we should have created a new crop of thinkers in Africa who will be anti-conflict and pro-progress. By then, we should have eliminated conflict for good. The solution is not in conflict resolution guidelines posted to UNDP and UNAID offices in civil democracies in Africa. It takes a collective dream with individual efforts to give these young people the confidence they need to fight conflict and embrace productivity. Meet Salim, a final year student of the University of Ghana, who understood that it took individual efforts. So with the little that he had, he organized a dialogue in his community to teach his people about the negativity of conflict. He understood that in many of these places, conflict is not caused by people's socio-political differences in thought. In fact, in many of these areas, conflict is not the cause. It is the byproduct of a system that does not teach us to understand that privilege is not just a state of being magically existing in the West, but privilege can be created here in Africa. In my short experience as a social political blogger in this country, I've come to realize that most of the problems we have seem unsolvable because the youth go into accepting the mess that the adults have created, and the mess that the adults are apparently comfortable in. In order to change this, we need to change our actions. If the chemistry teacher of George Anyaba had not taken the time to be concerned about the 15-year-old orphan in her class, he would probably not have grown to be the successful mentor he is today in Ghana, changing the lives of other young people. The thing about mentorship at a large scale is that it gives the youth the power to reverse any trend that is holding them back and sabotaging their future prospects. It gives them the bargaining power against conflict. So let's go out there and be mentors of change. That is the way to reshape Africa's next thinkers with better ideas and better prepared to move the continent forward. Before I go, to all those who say defending human rights is secularism and against the creeds of our ancestors, I say social injustice in one place is a threat to social justice everywhere. So if fighting social injustice is secularism, I won't apologize for being too secular. Thank you for your attention.